then on that score, let me ask you this. One of the things I've found, and even in here, like Mary and I had many conversations, and she went through like a little bit of an emotional roller coaster because this was very new territory for us.
Yeah, and I saw that even within our own business.
Yeah. So how do you handle that? What do you do?
I think you have to, you can't force anything down anyone's throat. You can't say, well, you should be behaving this way and that, because actually people are interpreting the circumstances very, very differently.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I had one of my staff members, who's a beautiful person and does a lot of work with me, who found it very early on in the first couple of weeks, and you had to have a bit of empathy around that. And the performance of that person post that fortnight's been incredible. The growth in that person's been amazing.
Yeah, because that anxiety is always based on the unknown. When people don't know, the anxiety levels rise and their behaviour can change. And I've seen that in quite a few people. So your goal is not only to run a business, you become, to a certain extent, you become a psychologist.
Yeah, I think there's a principle too. I think the thing that's really, really important is that you can tell them it's all going to be okay, but it's the action or the result that actually makes them feel okay. So, you know, we had some very early on conversations, and there was a period of, I think the first 2 weeks of shutdown when I got back from Thailand, you just saw everything locked. Basically everyone, it became like real estate became like a ghost town.
Yeah.
Right, and then, you know, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen that slowly dissipate and people come in. And everything that we were doing while nothing was going on is starting to come to fruition. So more listings are coming on, more people are coming to the opens, more properties are selling. And then people then start to trust or start to run with it because the energy level picks up and goes.
You know, that's the baseline for success, is to keep doing what you know is right, even when it's not working. It doesn't get any simpler than that. In all the times when I was in real estate and even in this business, we were doing the same things with sometimes no result, but we knew we were on the right path. And they're the days that really test you, where you go, shit, because our volition is to change course and go somewhere else. But in what I do is I always remind myself, I go on the whiteboard and that's why I bought this other board the other day, to make sure I'll write things down that will always, I'll write questions down. Those 3 questions you and I put on there the other week, I've written those down for something else that I've got in mind to remind me how I get from X to Y, right? And I've looked at that every day as I've been walking around the office on the phone. So, because I don't want to lose my thought process, and I give it 5 minutes thought every day about the X and Y thing that you remember I asked you those 3 questions, right? Now, so on that score, to stay, and you mentioned the word relevant before, to stay relevant is important, I get that, but to stay consistent is a priority. Because what happens is, I've noticed the service level with a lot of things have dropped off. And the funny part about it is, where we have our food works up here in Mount Waverley, the service level in that business has actually gone up. They've lifted. Everybody greets you now more than ever before. They'll come and ask you in the aisles if you want something. The place is flat out. And it's been flat out right through this COVID thing. Like, the guy that runs that business really had his shit together. Because as soon as this came on, they lifted the service level. And mate, they're flat out. You go there at 7:30 in the morning when they open, there's a queue out the door. There never used to be a queue pre-COVID. So do you see how that works? So you can actually turn that around, but he's remained relevant, but he's remained super consistent and lifted his service level up. And that's probably what you've done. That's why you're still getting market appraisals. Because most agencies aren't getting them that I speak to, even out your way. In some of those surrounding suburbs out your way, without mentioning the suburbs, some of the agencies they've had 1 market appraisal in 2 weeks. It's either they're not relevant, there's no marketing prowess, or they're not recognised. Like, it's pretty severe. Yeah. So, you agree that consistency is the key?
100%.
Okay. So therefore, if you agree with that, then let me ask you again about the staff. How do you keep the staff consistent? What do you do that you can enlighten anyone else to that's going to watch this video. What do you do to make sure that they put in the same effort every day, if not more, that they remain communicative with you, relevant with the business? What do you do with that? How does that work?
Communication is probably is the thing that has to be most consistent. It's like Daniel, who's one of my senior sales guys. Daniel and I would, whether I have made it to the office or not, Daniel and I would probably speak 3 or 4 times that day. Yeah. Right. So it's structured, but it's unstructured, but it's, but at the end of the day, there's always a call at the end of the day. That's the consistent part. As a wrap up.
Staying in touch.
There's always that chat in the morning to stay relevant. Now, we're a small team, so we can get away with that. But as we're growing as a team, more and more structure's coming in place because you have to be more defined as the team grows. And that becomes really important. It'll be, like we, with property management, and Taylor's doing an absolute amazing job with that. Holding the property management accountability, setting dates and getting things done. And then I will catch up with Tay and I'll get the lowdown. But I often will walk up there and have a conversation with them as well. But regardless of that, the structure there, we will meet twice a week with that team.
Yeah, okay. So then, as far as if you separate the sales and the property management department, and Braden runs the property management. So on that score, what do you see then if yesterday they started trialling the new vaccine at the Alfred Hospital for COVID? So taking into account that everyone says that if they find a vaccine today, it will probably be 6 to 12 months before it can be made, properly tested and distributed. So say 12 months. What do you see happening in the next 12 months? Just what do you see happening over your way in relation to, do you think people will sort of get used to the fact that there's a virus around and they'll just get back to normal? Do you think that the market will still have a little bit of a shudder in it? What's your prediction?
I definitely think the market will have some kind of a shudder in it. I think we've got this period at the moment that we're living through where you're either on job seeker, job keeper, and now job maker is going to come through. That's the bit we don't know. The job maker side of it, hasn't been executed yet, so we won't know that till it's upon us. But one of the things that I've noticed most is that for job seeker, their income went up. For job keeper, their income probably came down a little bit if you're on a job keeper. Yeah. Now that's only for a fixed period of time. So right now,
it ends in September.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a 6 month. Yeah. It's a 6 month window to try and get the market to correct itself. Now we know that that's not going to happen 100% correction in the market where everyone who's off is going to go back and get a job.
Well, the market. Sorry to butt in, but the market relies on migration, employment, and liquidity from the banks.
Correct.
So if we know that and we understand that, there are factors. Those 3 factors generally we can't control. So we have to move, manipulate, negotiate, and I suppose to a certain extent coerce the sale to its fruition. Basically, because once you sell it, the game's not over now. You've got to get to settlement, right? So that's going to be harder, I think, in the next 6 months to 12 months than what we've ever seen beforehand. Because the liquidity from the banks, although they say they're easing it, I don't believe that. I think it's bullshit. So what I'm seeing is that I'm seeing liquidity still drying up. All development finance is taking a real hit. The major 4 banks of Westpac have completely stopped lending at the moment for development finance over 5 mil.
So the impact of that on the market, the direct impact of that on the market is because you're not going to have that investment in that new dwelling or that new apartment block and new stuff like that. Those people that are coming into the market for that first time are actually going to have to be looking at existing properties in most cases or building with a builder.
Yes, and that's where if they bring in this new home build,
the $50,000
bonus, if that comes in, I think that will give the market a fairly strong kicker. But remembering too, though, out of the 225,000 people we had, and I'm not being negative, that came into Victoria every year, we don't have that now. Nope. We're now at 0. So they said that if COVID finished or we got a vaccination by the end of the year, the government still are saying that they'll only still let the migration run to 10 to 20% of what it was previously. So therefore, you've got 200,000 people that aren't in the market. So you're going to be relying on your own base. So the question is, people have asked me what do I think will happen with that. I've got to tell you, I don't know. Because the reality of it is, I don't know how the market will take that. The one thing that I do know, the Bunnings thing 2 weeks ago did tell me that at some point people say, oh shit, I'm just going to get on with living. There is a point where that happens. And us Aussies are generally pretty good at that, like, as a rule. You agree?
Yeah, I think I agree 100% with what you're saying. I also think that that's now where real estate becomes suburb-dependent.
Yeah.
And that's where the movement will grow. You'll see some suburbs in some areas obtain growth, and you'll see some not obtain growth. And you'll just see it. Like, I'll take an example of Sunbury, where I'm based at the moment. 78% of the inquiry is coming from out of town.
Is that right, is it?
Yeah, 78% of inquiry is being driven from out of town.
Was that like that before COVID?
It was high, but not quite that high. It was probably in about the 60, 65 mark.
Is that people buying homes or investment purchases?
No, both. You've got to understand that the median price in Sunbury hasn't shifted over the 6 months, over the COVID period.
Yeah.
There's been a fluctuation of about $5,000 since January. So it's sort of dropped a little bit and sort of come back up. Now, the price, what you got to understand is from 2018 to now, there's been really no shift in the median price, right?
Yeah, okay.
What we are finding is that the significant portion, I'll take the month of May to date for an example. 22 homes have been sold in Sunbury, right? And I'm excluding land and everything else. I'm just saying homes.
Established housing.
Yeah.
Yep.
19 of those 22 homes are sub $600,000 price point.
Right. Okay.
Only 3 have gone above it. Right?
So what does that tell you?
That it tells you that the people in that middle tier of the market
Yeah.
are the ones not exchanging it. That's what we need coming back into the market. That's where I think we haven't got that influx yet. I think we'll see that. That's where I think that actually a really big growth is going to come in that middle market. And I'll tell you why. Because in a Melbourne, COVID's done one thing. I don't know if you noticed, but if you went for a walk or have been going for a walk, have you noticed how many more people are on the street?
Yeah.
Neighbours leaning over fences talking to each other?
More than I've ever seen before.
Yeah, so that I remember
more
that.
people walking their dogs, all that stuff.
I reckon it's been 30 years since I've seen that sort of stuff, 35 years since I was a kid growing up that I really saw that. Now what you got is, you got to understand there's a lot of people living in apartments, living in smaller dwellings, who have been locked up in homes and are still locked up in homes because we're still not meant to be going out and doing too much stuff. That are now, their plans have changed. I've had 2 clients who said to me, Adrian, we want to live here in this particular pocket. They've now moved, and Sunbury's pretty urban spread. They've moved even further out to go on a half an acre. Now what you're going to find is these people are on 300 blocks on dual occupancies and units.
Yeah, that started already. I've noticed that down south.
Yeah.
Where people are, where you and I have a holiday home.
Yeah.
But down there, they've had an influx of inquiry.
Yeah.
The agents down there, and the problem is that they don't have enough stock. So it's very funny how that works, because you'll get a temporary uplift that that economist was writing about the other day in the Fin Review, and I can see that happening in certain pockets. So I think you're right with that. So let me ask you this then: when we come out of this, everyone's talking about a new world order. So no one really knows what to expect. One of the things that I've always noticed about this country in the 3 recessions that I've worked through is that we get back to normal reasonably quickly. We sort of brush the shit off and we get on with it. So, and I don't know whether any other country is constant or accentuates that trait as much as we do. But what I do know though is that the COVID thing has brought a new reality to people. And when you talk about people getting out and talking, we've got neighbours in our street that have never ever communicated and have been there 20 years that are now communicating.
Yeah.
Right? So, my mum always says, misery loves company. So therefore, if the shit hits the fan, people want to share. So, and that's one of the good things that's come out of it. What I think may happen though, and it'll be interesting to see what you think of this, is that in moving forward with unemployment most likely it's going to rise, and I still think the numbers are probably going to be well into double digits as far as the unemployment rate. The people that are on the JobKeeper aren't calculated in the unemployment figures at the moment, and nor are the casuals. So therefore, there's a whole run of that. So and especially out in the west where you are in Sunbury, you're going to have a fairly large market in that pocket of people. So therefore, it's not unlikely that you will take a hit. Like you may very well take a hit on price, where you'll find that the value is that actually gets even better, because if people are buying in this market where the prices are still stable and the prices drop, you'll find more people will move out to Sunbury. You see how that works in there?
Absolutely.
It actually works through the back door. So therefore, because it becomes in the first time I went out there to see you, remember I said I couldn't just believe how it was. It was just it was like an oasis. Good shops, good cafes, good restaurants. The main street was sleek, all that sort of stuff. So what you'll find is that if you get a price drop, it won't necessarily be a negative for you. People will see it as good value. So I think your game's going to be, without me telling you what to do, your game's going to be market the value that Sunbury offers for price, for all the amenities that's offered in that area, all those sorts of things. I didn't even know the Ashes were born there, when you educated me to that. So from that perspective, there's just little things like that just make it different.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the northwest corridor of Melbourne, and somebody's smack bang in, it's the gateway to the Macedon Ranges.
Yeah.
It's a very unique proposition for a suburb.
Absolutely, I agree.
It's surrounded by greenwood zones all over the place.
Yeah.
That are in place to protect it. There's growth plans for as a township. It's on a metro line.
Yeah.
The thing
is there any rail extension planned for that area? Do you know that?
There'll be the country rail runs all the way through to Bendigo.
Yeah.
The next two stops that are touted is one in between Diggers Rest and Sunbury, and then one out the back of Sunbury where they're actually growing down the Lansfield Road. So at the back there.
Yeah.
In terms of metro stations.
Yeah.
The thing, what a lot of people don't realise about that, and why a lot of people are now discovering it as a town, is because go northwest. It's the only place that's on a metro line in that zone where there's undulating land. And we all know that undulating land makes for picturesque suburbs or picturesque towns.
And that's what you notice when you drive in, aside from that great winery that's already there as you drive in, that's the first thing you notice.
Yeah.
And I must admit, Druin's like that.
Yeah.
I never thought Druin would take off, and it's just gone crazy, and it's gone crazy for that reason.
Yeah, it's the same reason, because you go...
It's picturesque.
You go from Diggers Rest back towards the water and back towards Melbourne. It is completely flat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You go...
Although that's very good to get there, though, because it's a quick run.
Yeah, it's great. It's easy roads, straight roads. The roads are all fantastic out there. But once you leave Sunbury and head towards Macedon, you got the start of the Great Dividing Range.
Yeah.
So everything sort of in that zone at the back then becomes a bit more undulating, which is why I think it's such an attractive growth corridor.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, what we might do is we might wrap this up. As you can see, everyone, Adrian, the one thing that he knows, he's got his shit together, and he knows a lot about his suburb, and he knows a lot about his business. So this guy here is what I class as a great human being. He not only is he a good family man, the reality of that is he's an extremely proficient real estate agent. So what makes him proficient is the fact that he knows what's going on in his suburb, and he's able to negotiate the best outcome for people. So if you're looking to get a job in real estate out in the northwest, this is the guy to give a call to. I want to thank you very much, mate.
Pleasure been on today. Thanks, Michael.
And guys, I can only say to you, if you're looking to get into real estate, and if you hear the way that Adrian articulates himself, and he speaks with clarity, and he's got that nice, calm, very measured approach to the business, that saved him in this marketplace, in my opinion. I think he had 2 really quiet weeks, and then after that, it all came back together. And that's because you held everyone, basically, you kept them motivated and you held them accountable, that's an art in any market. So congratulations to you. So guys, thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for subscribing to the YouTube channel. If we can ever be of any service in relation to any ideas for interviews, please let us know. Good luck, God bless, stay great.